you think about how's he got that, and also how's that then affected you? Like, have you got it, or has he got it, and then now you've got it as well. If that makes sense.
I would like to think he got it
Yeah.
from nursery and gave it to me, and that I didn't give worms to my son. That would be.
Yeah, that's a good start.
I'm going to presume because he's picked up everything under the sun from nursery in the time he's been there. I'm going to presume it's from nursery.
Yeah.
We've got our family dog now. She's 16. She's pretty old. She's not uncleanly or anything like that, but obviously dogs can get worms.
Dogs have it, mate. Yeah,
But apparently you can't. Worms aren't passable from dogs to
no, they're
humans.
I suppose they're a different type, aren't they?
Apparently, I don't know how true that is. I didn't do any research. Mum told me, so probably not from that. Yeah, I imagine. I imagine from nursery, but yeah, absolute chaos. So he's been through the wars, but he's good now, and he's sleeping. Mate, he's sleeping. He's in a routine, so he'll go down. He'll sleep through to like 5, 5:30, wake up crying,
Yeah.
and then Char will grab him. Damien, he comes in the bed, which no shit.
That's quite nice though, isn't it?
Oh, mate, we love it. Absolutely
chilling.
love it. It's so nice because he comes and he goes back to sleep, but then he's like led there, kind of like us in the middle, and he's half asleep, half not. So what he'll do, he'll realise you're there. He like feels around to touch you, and then he'll start going, like flicking at you, and then he'll like try flick you. He's got this obsession with like touching your eyelashes.
Really?
Do you think he's going to gouge your eye out? And then he gets to them. He's really gentle, and he just like,
Oh, bless him.
um,
So one day he does actually gouge your eye.
yeah, sometimes he does if he gets all excited or frustrated. But
Bless him.
and then, yeah, he'll like cuddle up to you. So it's nice to have that time in the morning. That's one thing. Like running the business and doing like training and stuff. Since I've had him, so coming up to a year now, has been the most fluid I've been with my training schedule.
Yeah.
Because of that, like I went from like rigid I'd train in the morning or rigid I'd train after work. Well, after work I can't now because go back and help out, and Charles come back from work and life. Training in the morning, I will do on the most part, but sometimes like on a day where, because Monday, Tuesday she's at home, so he'll be in the bed. Like I kind of like that time with him.
Yeah, you can't really bypass that, can you?
Exactly, mate. And you can't put a price on that. I've been so fortunate to do what I do, and to not being in the corporate world anymore, and to have that time with him. Honestly, I could not imagine not being there and being those little things. Like it's that time in the morning. I wouldn't want it, but I could not see him for the rest of the day. If I've had that time in the morning with him, like
mate, good start to the day.
There's nothing better.
Him.
There's nothing better, and obviously you'll go through this. I'm so buzzing for you. I'm so buzzing for you, mate. It's so cool. Honestly, there is nothing like it. I can't personally relate to anyone who doesn't want to have kids, but I've always been pretty paternal.
Yeah, I was about to say maternal, but it's definitely paternal.
Yeah.
Just to confirm.
Yeah. Which I appreciate is potentially somewhat rare. Like I remember age of like, I remember being in primary school, someone saying to me, when do you want to have kids? And I was like, I want to have kids by the time I'm 28 and I want this much. Like who's thinking about that as a kid, which is so strange.
Quite similar, to be fair.
Yeah. We've had this conversation.
Yeah, we are. I think we're quite similar in that sense, to be fair. I don't know where that comes from. Other than like, my upbringing was good. I had a nice, good family. Like I got no complaints at all. But I always wondered, where's that come from? What? Because some kids, like family friends, their children, some kids are either naturally really paternal or maternal, and they're like 3 or 4. I'm thinking, are they just? And normally, the ones like my experience, they've got younger siblings.
Yeah.
So are they copying the mum and like wanting to like nurse the baby sort of thing?
Yeah, maybe.
Or is there some? And maybe it's a bit of both, because I've also known some kids that like, especially little lads, they just want to like jump off things. And
I was gonna say like,
they're not bothered. So
yeah, I mean, I'm sure you did. Still did all of that. It wasn't my thing. Wasn't getting ready. I'm 10 years old.
Babies,
yeah, getting ready to have kids. But you see it in toddlers, specifically with girls, don't you? Like they want the dolls and they want a mother. Yeah. You don't tend to see it in boys, and I'm sure at that age I didn't either. But yeah, I don't know where it comes from. I remember, so I'm the youngest within our family. I've got an older brother, a couple of years older than me. I remember asking, my dad had the snip by this point, but I remember asking, like, I really want a younger brother.
Yeah.
I don't know why, don't know where that came from. Just thought it would be, I guess, cool and fun. So
I think it's a nice thing, isn't it? I think everyone wants responsibility. I
Yeah.
think that echoes back to that. Like, if you're an older brother, that maybe you feel like I've got something to look after now.
Yeah,
like a
maybe
sense
that's
of
what it
purpose
is.
almost.
Maybe it is that.
It
Maybe
probably
it's
is.
maybe it's deep down some search of like, I don't know, validation. We're probably reading too much into it, but like you know, seeing Charlie now, she was always going to be the best mum in the world. And she,
Yeah.
you know, she has to be good with kids for what she does. I was confident I was going to be a good dad, but I just didn't know what that looked like.
Yeah.
Because it's new.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
have no doubt in my mind. If someone asked me, name someone you know who's going to be an unbelievable dad, you'd be like, honestly, top of that list. I mean it. I mean it. And that's the biggest
I
compliment.
appreciate that.
No, honestly, that's the biggest compliment I can pay. Because some people, I think, fucking hell, there's
Maybe
a
not.
steep learning curve to go on that. But
Speaking of that, it's quite an interesting sort of topic. Is obviously we found out it's a little girl, and I'll tell you the story we found out. So obviously we go to Windows the womb, have the scan, and like, oh, do you want to find out on this sort of meeting the gender? We're like, yeah, of course we do. And Zoe sat there like, obviously,
Yeah.
there's no two ways about this. And we had Zoe's parents come with us as well.
oh,
So
they were there.
Yeah, so they
Were
came
they?
in, which was awesome. So we're sat in the room, and Zoe hadn't told me, but for 2 weeks prior, she'd been having dreams as a little girl. And she said
Really?
nothing to me. So I'm still going positive foot forwards from a little lad. Not that I'm bothered either way. I'm happy either way. But
Can I just say on that? Sorry to jump across you, and we'll get back to that. I don't think there's any shame in saying what you want. We all know as human beings, whatever comes out, you don't care. You'll love them more than anything in the world. And actually, I guarantee you, as soon as she comes out, you'll be like, I'm so glad we've got a girl.
Yeah.
The same we were with the
Yeah,
boy.
yeah.
Of course, I was actually mentally prepared for a girl. Kind of wanted a boy internally. Char wanted a girl.
Yeah.
She will say she wanted a girl. And now she's like, I'm probably. I think she's resigned to the fact we're probably going to have two boys, and she's going to be a boy.
You reckon?
Mum. Yeah. I think we're
that means
fairly.
I'm gonna have two girls.
I think I could have 10 kids, mate, and I reckon there'd
all be boys.
There'd be boys. So maybe I'm wrong. But I don't think there's any shame in saying that. It doesn't make you any less of a person, you know.
It's just I think it's one of them weird things. Initially, thought right, they'll play rugby, they'll do football, they'll do all the things that I did. They'll do cricket, they'll do this.
Yeah.
Because that's what the path I walked.
Your perceived future changes a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
of course.
obviously they'll do that, and obviously for a little girl, they can still do all that. I'm not saying they can't, but they're more likely not to do that.
Yeah.
So we're sat in there, and Zoe's obviously known for 2 weeks in her head that's a girl. And when they did the initial scan, apparently, unbeknownst to me, you could tell that it was a girl, not a boy. When they did I don't know, obviously there wasn't an innie, not an outie sort of thing. So I'm sat there, and there's like the scan lady and her assistant, and the assistant goes, so what do you think's going to be then? And I was like, hopefully a little boy. And literally, as them words left my mouth, she like had this drag and drop thing. She's like, it's a girl. I'm like, yeah. But since then, like,
That's a bit of an unfair question to ask you in that.
It is, yeah. Because literally, she's about to tell me.
Yeah.
It's like pulling out like the lottery ticket, knowing that you've lost.
That's a big risk from her.
Lost.
Like 50-50.
Yeah.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
But now it's like we had that conversation. I said to her, actually, I'm quite thankful in some respects because I'm probably going to do things jokingly, like lads at work, like you're going to be a dance dad. Obviously, with Zoe dancing.
Yeah.
One of her best friends having working at a dance school. I was like,
I'll tell you what, one thing's guaranteed: she's going to be athletic.
Well, that's the one thing I said to Zoe. I was like,
gymnast or something.
Yeah, mate. I was like, she's gonna pass a ball. She's gonna throw a ball, pass a ball, kick a ball.
Yeah.
And so like, why does that matter? I was like, because it matters in so many different things.
Yeah.
Like if I'm so certain. Some kids are quite resilient and they cannot be good at something and they're like, I'm not good at this, I want to keep going. I'd say the vast majority of kids that they're not very good at something, they stop doing it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say there's a difference between the genders of how, but typically younger boys spend more time playing sports, don't they? Typically, not saying everybody, and typically girls probably don't.
Yeah.
I was like, our kid, whoever, regardless of who, is going to be as active as possible because I think the better they are at basic motor skills and things like throwing, passing, catching, they're going to be able to play with other people for longer, and they're probably going to enjoy it more because they can do it.
Yeah, socially, it's. Oh, this sounds so bad. We're not trampling on people who don't have the skill set or don't want to do it, and everyone's different. Like my brother, who really couldn't give two toss about sports, and that was innate in him. he was taken to the same classes as me, whether it's football or rugby, and just wasn't interested. I innately wasn't. He's had an unbelievable life, and that's fine. But I think for loads of different reasons, like stress release, being outside, sport,
Just
all that,
doing it.
Yeah, she's going to be extremely athletic. Do you know one thing I think, because I was thinking about this when we were leading up to finding out about Luca. Seeing Neil with Char and Kara,
Yeah.
like the relationship, like he is an unbelievable dad, like the best, right? But seeing the relationship a girl has with their dad and a boy has with their mum, like for a boy, their first love apparently is their mum.
Yeah.
For a girl, it's their dad.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have that. And that's not to say you don't love.
No,
do you know what I mean?
But yeah, you're right.
Luca's person will be his mum.
Yeah, yeah. Who he sort of say they model off a lad will model from his dad.
Yeah.
Rightly or wrongly, whether like they could have a good experience or the good experience thing. The good experience they'll mirror.
Yeah.
And bad experiences they may mirror, and it depends on that personality type. You know, some people will mirror the dad and become, if the dad's a bastard, they become a bastard.
Yeah.
Or if they're gonna have a dad that's a bastard and go, you know what, I'm never gonna be that man. Or you can have a fantastic dad. I think my dad's fantastic, and I'll try to emulate that. And I think that's the case. And obviously, for a lad, you're probably right. I think the mum's attributes of who they are, kind, caring, whatever it is. I think that then becomes what someone looks for.
Yeah, I think that dad typically is like the toolbox.
Yes, yeah.
And then the mum is the love, the emotion, the compassion, probably. But no, mate, you're going to be incredible, and that's we've really diversified on our topics here. But let's bring it back down to subject matter, like the impact it's had on my health and fitness. There'll be, say, a load of dads listening. That might be optimistic for a amount of listeners to start with, but for anyone who's gone through the transition, no matter how much they are into and they love their training, their fitness and nutrition, and they emphasize, excuse me, that part of their life, becoming a dad changes your ecosystem. Yeah. You've now got something that is, well, of course, it's a physical time drain, but more of a mental time drain sounds horrible, but like it consumes you mentally. Yeah. You don't get, well, particularly in the first year, right? You're not, and beyond, I imagine, through toddlers and terrible twos, but you're not getting sleep. You basically sacrifice half of yourself and put it into this little thing, and that's, you know, mum and dad together. Mum more so initially, of course, and it has its impact. And I've had to do that dance of like, okay, I have my non-negotiables. I'm not training. I need to train for my mind, to be sharp in business, to turn up for my coaching clients, to be the right husband, to be the dad I want to be in the future, but more importantly, to like, for my own inner voice, right, I need to train. And I used to be so rigid. Like, you might have experienced this, maybe with me, I'm not sure. If someone was like, do you want to train?
Oh, mate, trust me, I've had this with you.
Yeah.
Do you want to train? Well, I can train between this time and this time.
I'll train it this time. And by the way, I've got pull, so this is what we're doing, kind of thing. And I've just always been that way. I've never been, I need like a logbook and structure. I need to know going into that session to beat the week before. All of my mind. I've had to let go of that. Like now, if you said to me, do you need to train?
I was literally about to ask you, what does training look like to you now?
So training's the same in terms of what I'm looking to pull from it.
Yeah.
So it's hard work, it's intensity, picking the stuff that mentally I don't want to do, because that's usually what I need to lean into. And it's still, I do football now. I do more cardio-based work. So I fucking hate the term hybrid, but like more hybrid style training in terms of I'll go for a run, etc. A lot more mobility work. Now I'm getting slightly older and playing football more frequently. I feel the niggles and the tightness a lot more. But the training style in the gym is still pretty much the same. It's hypertrophy work. It's like RPE 9-10 intensity, the failure, because that's what I need for my mind. So the structure of training hasn't necessarily changed. I'm just a little bit more forgiving on myself. Like if I need to move a date, my mind doesn't capitulate. If I need to not train in the morning, it'd be a rigid because I've got to help out with Luca and then I've got work calls, I'll fucking get it in and I'll find a way, but it doesn't capitulate my mind. But equally, I'm a lot more open to to other stuff, my intention around training maybe has changed a little bit. For the first 8 years, it was like, want to grow, natural bodybuilding preps, just get stronger and build tissue and do all that stuff. Now I'm not massively fussed about developing a ton of muscle. I want to be fit, I want to be healthy, I still want to be in good shape, I want to be strong, and I want to be a little bit more athletic. But so training in itself is really the same, but just that rigid nature you have to let go of, because in my opinion, if you try and keep that, you'll capitulate at some point.
And you cut away on the things that probably matter more.
Yeah.
Like the time with Luca, like the time with Char. You cut away at that for what? And my next question is, do you feel there's much difference in physique, strength, actual performance?
Great question.
Because I
Great question.
Because I'm going to, after this, I'll talk about my kind of awakening to all this.
Yeah, great question. Honestly, I feel like, so I achieved the best shape I've ever been in my subjective opinion, right before Luca was born.
Okay.
I don't know if that was some subconscious thing of just wanting to get ready, but I started doing more running. I'd gone back to football. My physique went from like bodybuilding training 5 times a week to doing more cardio-based work, and it changed. It responded really well. So I've naturally, like, I'm not extremely broad. I've got long limbs. I'm naturally more athletic than like short, stocky, kind of like holding a ton of muscle. And I got to a point where the cross-section between the muscle and the work I put in for the last decade, alongside the body composition, the fitness levels really came together. And it was the first time in my life I've looked at myself and gone, I actually really like my physique.
Really?
And that was just, like I said, just before he was born, leading into when he was born, so April last year. Really, really good. And then the first 6 months, so probably held that for 6-7 weeks, and it started to creep up on me a little bit, like where you're not sleeping and you're not tired and the cortisol levels are a bit higher. I really struggled with the business in a way, because I hadn't been through that journey before. I didn't know, and I'm the only person responsible for all my clients and developing and all of that stuff. I didn't know how to navigate the lack of sleep. You don't know what you're going into, so you just got to figure it out the first time. So I got to a place where my eating habits changed a little bit. My training frequency was as high. I'm sure the intensity maybe had dropped off. My ability to recover was poor. And so I started to put on weight again. Not crazy, but I certainly wasn't the shape I was in then. In terms of strength, though, like leading to probably now, I'd say the last 6 weeks, probably back to somewhere near the best I think I've ever been. And I think you figure out, I've become a lot smarter. This is a really long-winded answer, but it's a good question. I've become a lot smarter with being in tune with what my body needs and paying attention to it. So again, I haven't got it on today, it's charging, but my Whoop that I give all of my clients, and I lean into that data a lot more now to tell me, not always, but to tell me, okay, how am I genuinely feeling with football? We're coming to the end of the season. We've been playing like a lot more games at a higher frequency, so I can't load the bodybuilding style training. That's probably why, like I was saying, Joe got injured. I went and did 2 days ago. I went and did a lower session, just focus on my right glute, because I've been having a few issues. It's that thing that's fucking gone, so I probably caused myself an injury there. So I've been a lot smarter with what I'm doing, and maybe my physique leans into that more. I think I've dropped a little bit of inflammation. My HRV is higher again. Luca's into a better sleeping pattern now. So the truthful answer is it's gone through waves. I'm as strong, probably amongst the strongest I've ever been, but only in the movements that I'm doing. And I've had to be a lot more, like, I can't, with playing football, I can't back squat, because every time I back squat, I get niggles. And if I take niggles into football, the next day I'm screwed. But still, like, posterior chain movements, my dad's still strong, up there with the strongest it's been. My dumbbell presses, military presses, like, all of that stuff is up there, to be honest with you. But I'm settling, my weight settles around like the 94-ish mark. That seems to be where my baseline is for pretty good condition, good training performance. I'd say my ideal weight would probably be like, my ideal weight for athletic performance would be 90 flat.
Really?
But I'd sacrifice on strength and fullness and stuff. So, yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey, and you'll figure it out as you go.
Yeah, exactly.
But just don't be too hard on yourself, is what I would say. Because some of the intensity that you do from doing your job as a firefighter, going and doing CrossFit, which is super intense, like the kind of the pushing, operating at that, 7,000-8,000 RPM all the time.
God, yeah.
That will have to be sacrificed.
Burn out,
But your body will probably be thankful for it.
Yeah, I think the key thing what you just said there is, I'd almost say you're no worse off.
No,
you're probably. I'm not gonna say doing less. That's not the right word, but you've redirected energy.
Restructured, for sure.
Restructured is the best way. You've laid a solid foundation, and now you've restructured, and like you said, you're no worse off. If anything, and this is the thing in my experience as well, where, mate, I was in high frequency training, full body 4 times a day. Then I was like running 20 miles a week, and I was sound for like 6 months. During COVID, it was like happy days. Then world started opening up again, started doing more and more things, and I got a bit bored of that. I thought I'll go back to like a bit of a bro split. Mate, I started to ache because I was trying to train legs twice a week. I was trying to back squat heavy twice a week. Loads of issues, and then going back to doing CrossFit and kind of more hybrid training. It's the first time in a long time I've like not programmed myself. I followed the programmer for the CrossFit gym, and I'm like, I'll see how it goes. And at the start, mate, I was like, this ain't enough.
Yeah.
This ain't enough. But then now, in terms of like my strength, my performance, my fitness, I rarely get niggles, rarely super sore. Every now and again, we have some sessions that are pretty killer. But my strength is probably the strongest I've been in a long time.
Yeah.
In some lifts, the strongest I've ever been ever. And I'm probably doing the least amount of work I've ever done. And it's that accepting that actually I want to live in Death Zone 10.
Yeah.
But you can't, and it's not sustainable. And also, it just proves to me that you don't have to be there.
So that's such an important point, because I'm sure some people that will listen are like, what are you two guys talking about? I can't even motivate myself to train at all.
Yeah.
But there'll be some people that resonate with that a lot, that are like, unless I'm like, as you said, Death Zone 10, super high RPM, like burning myself out, I don't feel like I'm doing enough.
Yeah.
And that finding that balance is really, really important. I can't stress that enough. Like, do you know what? A big change for me was I went through medically and getting some bloods done and testing and stuff. And my CRP inflammation markers, I had three full blood tests done in the period of, in a quarter basically. So across a 3-month period, every single one CRP levels high. There's a few other things as well, and creatine levels and stuff. And I started to think, like, is this, like, training's a stress stimulant in the body?
Yeah.
Right? If I already know from previous tests that I've done, and if I can show proving it now with the injury I've got, like, I've got a high disposition to injury. My ability to recover is pretty poor based on my genotype, apparently, which I resonate with. And so just to that mental shift of like, okay, you may be doing more harm than good at this stage.
Yeah.
After 10 years plus of training and doing all of this thing, the mental side of training is like ingrained now.
Yeah.
Like I will never not train. A lot of days I don't want to train, but I'll do it anyway. It's not a question whether I want to do it. That side's dealt with. Now I probably have to start to become smarter about the inflammation response, the stress on my body, and what's going on internally. What would you say? Because we do this. This is our injury. This is our space. We help people that don't do this, that can't do this.
Yeah.
When it comes to unlocking that motivation, the why to train, we touched on the why in our first episode, so we don't need to get back into that necessarily. But in your experience of coaching people, how do they unlock that momentum building first bit? Because before they do that, they're not going to get to 5 years down the line. It's part of who they are. Like I said previously, I believe in the previous conversations, you know, maybe they have kids, maybe they don't, maybe they're about to have kids, they're at a cross section in their life, they know they need to improve their health, they've never really trained, maybe they played sport or college sports or whatever, but they don't have that desire.
I think part of it is recognizing easy wins. Sorry, well, what I mean by that is, if you got someone, I remember training someone that had kids, and up until that point, I mostly trained athletes that were single, maybe go out on the weekend, but most of them were pretty stingent in what they were doing. So first person I had that had kids, and I'm like 21, mate, so I'm a bit like, all right, okay, yeah, got kids, great.
You're telling them to go do 6 sessions
Mate,
a
I'm
week,
like,
no kids,
right, you need
like,
to
all the
at
time
least,
in the world.
Yeah, basically it was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
right, your morning session's going to be this, you need 8 hours between, and the evening session to be this. It's like,
Yeah.
that's not going to work. But it's little things like saying to this individual, like, right, okay, 10,000 steps a day is a pretty good ballpark. People argue it's a made up figure, blah, 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 but it equates to around about 2 to 3 miles of movement, which is not bad going. And I sort of said to her, right, okay, that's like a simple, easy goal that regardless of where you're at, we can hit, like a consistency thing. And we can use that, like we spoke about before, use them successes as the fuel to keep yourself going. And people struggle with the consistency of doing things. So that's like, we talk about things like the breath work in programming. It seems really ridiculous until you start doing it all and you get the pattern of doing it.
Yeah.
They're little wins, and that's the little nuggets of fuel. So 10,000 steps for this lady. I said, right, okay, 10,000 steps, you can get them however you want. She said, all right, okay. So what does that mean then? I said, right, okay. Do you take your kids to the park? Oh, yeah, we go to the park most days. This is during the summer. I said, right, okay, well, how do you get there? How far is the park away from your house? And she was like, about a mile and a half, the one we go to. I said, right, okay. I said, could you walk there with your kids? Is there a route of which you could walk there? She was like, yeah, there is. Like, it's kind of down Low Street, across an escape. We're there. So, right, if you walk there and back, that's 3 miles, right? That's great for you. It's great for your kids. It's like, is there a route you can take that takes you to like some fields or like woods or anything like that? She's like, well, yeah, I think there is, but I don't know. I've never gone there before. I said, right, well, I'm not telling you like what to do. I was like, but if you walk there, right, we're ticking off your 10,000 steps easily. You're telling me it's a mile and a half there, mile and a half back. That's 3 miles. So not only are you getting some level of very basic aerobic conditioning, very, very low key, but also your kids are getting that.
Yeah.
And you're going out in nature and you're spending time together. And guess what? Once you get to the park, they're going to play in the park for a bit, burn some energy. They're going to love that experience. And guess what? You're then going to walk home and have all this time. I said, that might take you 2 hours, but you've basically, you've hit a target without even knowing you've hit the target.
Yeah. You've not fundamentally changed your lifestyle.
Not at all.
You've not had to grab hold of that. Just stop it. Tapping the mic. You've not had to reinvent the wheel necessarily. Okay, you might add, half an hour to your day because you're going to walk, but it's so easy to waste half an hour in the day. So
It's that kind of was a very, very kind of low key, easy win, and that all of a sudden, for that lady, that became right. Okay, we can do that most days.
Yeah.
Because she worked from home, it was easy for her.
Yeah.
And the kids were young enough, and it's little things like that, and that bought her trust in terms of how I analysed and thought about things.
Such an important word in the process.
And it was one of the things where I was actually quite proud of myself. I thought, fucking hell, I nailed that.
Yeah.
Because it was just, it came to me, and I was like, all right. I remember as a kid, my grandma and granddad taking me for walks, and we'd walk somewhere and then go to a park, and so go up in the national forest. It's like, all right, that's a thing. So yeah, I'm not sure I've answered that question well, but it's them little, it's silent
small wins. Small wins,
which incorporate other wins for her. She's spending time with her kids, they're exercising, and they're just, you don't even know the conversation they could have had there. Go out in nature, seeing flowers, talking about trees, whatever it is. That's quality time that she's managed to have at the same time. It's working towards her goal.
Yeah, there's more. That's an important point. There's more benefits to it than just I've got some steps in. Fucking whoopie-doo. Actually, you've connected. You spent more time with your kids. You're not in a rush. Kids, get in the car, fucking ram it down to the park. Stressed because you can't find a car park. No, that's an important point. But equally on top of that, it's showing from a young age. I talk to our clients about this, who, on the most part, they're execs, mums and dads, to be fair, but saying to them like, how do you want your kids to live?
Yeah.
If we could like fast forward and your child was living your life now, they're burnt out, they're stressed, they're tired, they don't exercise, they eat shit all the time. What would you be saying to them? I'd be saying they need to change. Okay, well, how do you expect them to do that if all they've seen is their dad or their mum stressed out in a rush all the time?
Yeah.
And that's it. It's a tricky kind of balance to find, because we then get into the concept of like the structure of their life. Is your job serving you?
Yeah.
Like I work with a guy, his name's Alan. He's fucking brilliant. I love the bloke. He's so good to work with. Was promoted to CEO of a huge company. I won't mention the name, in the US in the time we've been working together. And his life went from, and he was in an executive role anyway, but his life just completely changed. The level of responsibility, the travel, the stress, what we were doing wasn't working anymore, so we had to change it because of his ecosystem of his life. And I had a very honest conversation with him, and it's, you know, not really, I'm probably stepping outside of my remit to do so, but I view him as a friend almost now. I said, look, what you have to consider, all this stuff is great, how much we're working out and your body fat percentage and your physique and building this system for the future is all great, but what you have to consider now is the other consequence this job role is putting on you. The stress is, like, he's got a house in upstate New York, he's got an apartment in New York City, they're doing all right financially. I respect the hustle, and we're all on that journey, but what is the consequence? He's not in a stage of life in his 20s, 30s, in which you can kind of burn the candle both ends. And he very honestly to me was like, look, this is a 5-year role for me.
Yeah.
I've got 5 years in this. I'll, you know, continue to set up my family and do the best I can for the business, but ultimately this isn't sustainable. And he recognised that. So it's finding that balance between, sometimes you look at someone's schedule and you go, there's probably laziness going on here. There's a lot of time to optimize no matter what level of business they're at. And sometimes you look at it and go, the issue isn't you necessarily here. The issue is the lifestyle that you've created.
And what you've got used to. Your habit is this.
And that's an important conversation. We're all responsible for the way that we live. If you sit there every day and you moan about your schedule, you moan about being stressed, you moan about this and that, put the blame on everything else, only you're responsible for fixing that. If you came in today and were like, I had this fucking job and so's an idiot and I can't stand, not that you would ever do this, can't stand the fire service, and like you're an absolute unbusted, unbelievable at what you do, but then I'll be like, no sympathy, get out there. There's a million jobs out there.
I agree with you,
and same for me, you know, I experienced that in the corporate world. I had to get out for me. But it's so easy to kind of sit there and wallow. So it's finding that cross section between, sometimes you've got to go through the process of improving your health to then reflect and go, actually, the problem is the life that I'm living. And I need to change that somewhat.
But I think by exercising, it gives people a pause in their day to reflect. And I find that particularly with people that during like COVID that were training, that gyms are short. When we're allowed to do an hour a day, so right, you can go for a run for an hour.
How mad is that, by the way? Sorry, I don't mean to jump across you, but that is
you're allowed an hour a day,
mate. Thinking
like
about
being
that.
In prison.
We all lived like that for 2.
And we all kind of.
How long was it? I can't even remember.
I can remember the first lockdown, and this is a massive curveball. I can remember at work. I worked in Derby at the time. We're at the fire station, and we're all sat around the telly. It's like near change of shift, and it's like, right, the lockdown's coming in. And they're like, fucking hell, what's this going to mean for us? Like, no one really knows what's going on. And I'm thinking, oh, God, I wonder what we're going to do with us. And literally nothing changed for us, mate. Still going to fires, still doing our bits and bobs. We had to social distance when we can, but, mate, they were the best things. We're being told, like, right, you've got to stay 2 metres apart. Yep, Sam, we're going to get in a fire engine that's about 2 metres wide. And there's 6 of us on it. It's like,
and yet people were being prosecuted for going for like extra walks or being out of bounds. Mate, the whole, and I'm not trying to diminish, you know, coronavirus, and it impacted a lot of people's lives, but that whole period of time was fucking wild.
It is wild.
Yeah, we were very lucky because we got our first house. We were due to complete, or very lucky to complete. We had to like push it through, and the day we basically moved in the day before all of the restrictions kicked in. We were like, if we don't get it now, we would have been at mum and dad's for another.
Probably like, was it 6, 7? I can't remember how long the first one was, but it went on forever.
Yeah, and then it broke a little bit, and then it carried on. God knows how long we would have been out of the house for. We'd have had to pay the mortgage because we had exchange. We had to do all that. So the first part of it, strangely, was like we got in the house, everything shut down initially for a 2 week period. Unbelievable weather.
Oh, it was great, wasn't it?
Unbelievable weather. We were like, this is fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Of course, you know the consequences and you know
Yeah.
what happened of it as well. But it's such a strange time. And speaking to people even now on calls who would, you know, come to say they're interested in the coaching, say summarize the last, you know, decade or your experience, comes up so often.
Yeah.
Was doing all right, you know, got to COVID and then just started drinking and didn't do anything. And I think take people out of their routine, and give us a little bit more freedom, but in a way that we don't really know how to control and structure. They lose the plot.
I had mates that had like, right, I've been furloughed. I had one mate that was
Furlough, that was it.
and then he was given like the rest of the pay on top. So it's like I'm basically £500 better off already because I'm not paying for transport, parking, food. So it's like it's great. I mean, this is one person. He said I had 2 months off at the start. He said, but yeah, it's great, you know. I played Fortnite every day, played Call of Duty. I think it's like Warzone was out.
Oh,
so I was doing that. And I'm starting thinking, I'm doing 12-hour shifts, mate. Like, okay.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, you were.
I'm still doing it.
All emergency services, paramedics, firefighters, police, men and women, people in hospitals, like, you guys are the fucking backbone and, you know, the shift and grind that you did. I remember clapping. Do you remember clapping for the ambulance and all that? Which is so good, mate. It kind of brought everyone together in a strange time, but
it got forgotten real fast.
It did, yeah. And second to that, and I mean now you look at it and like, still cuts going on, still underfunded. That should have been a fucking red a wake up call to say actually, if the shit hits the fan, these are the people we need. So let's double down and back them. But I also think that period for people outside of those professions, it made people fucking lazy.
It's what I get to. My mate, he was like, it's great the first couple of weeks, and then he started drinking. And I remember him saying to me, with this conversation, he's like, yeah, you know, I'd wait till like midday and have a beer. And like him and his lads he worked with, they're all on Warzone. It's it's good crack. And then he said to me, and then one day I just thought, I got up at 8, I thought, might as well have a beer, it's a nice day. And then he said, then he had a beer at 9 o'clock. 10 o'clock. I said, he drank like a 24 pack in a fucking day by himself. It's like, and I'm there thinking, mate. And then he said to me, he's like, I think I probably have a bit of a problem, really. And that's a person that like played rugby together, he's gone and joined the corporate job, had this experience where it's like, you gave me free time, of which admittedly you kind of locked in your own house, but he had a house and a garden, has an exercise bike, has a gym. So it could have gone, you know, depending on your personality and your mindset, one or two ways. And unfortunately, he went down a real dark path for a while.
Mate, I genuinely, I think 75% of people did.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm, you know, ebbing up that number.
I think it's more so
the law of probability from the people I've spoke to.
Yeah, definitely.
It sounds like most people did. And even, I'm fucking ashamed to say it, I'm neither of us are drinkers. No. Right? We don't, boring as fuck, we barely go out. I'd generally rather sit at home and, you know, and chill out. I'd rather do this, you know, than go out and sit down and have a chat with you. But neither of us are big drinkers or anything. I was about to, so when we first moved in, I was about to start prep for my bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
Obviously, you couldn't access gyms. Managed to get hold of a little bit of kit.
I remember this,
Lee Powell, X212 Olympian, owns the gym that I went to. He went and did drops for people. You could he would drop off a little bit of kit. He dropped some, unbelievable that he did that around the house. And he was like prepping me for the show. But I had a 2-week period before that where I was like, well, I'm about to start prep. Prep is one of the most intense things you can go through. I'm just going to eat and just relax. And so I got the fattest I'd been. I was like close to 110 kilos. I was strong and I was big, but just carrying too much fat. And even I, mate, in the evening got into the routine of just having a beer.
Really?
Mate, it was so strange.
What started it, though? Just like that, might as well.
I can't remember the trigger. In fact, the trigger was probably because we moved in. Yeah, people get you like celebrationary things, like here's a pack of beer and a card or whatever. We just had them in the house. Charles probably like, I'm going to have a Prosecco. I was like, I'll have a beer. Just a cold beer. Remember, it was sunny.
It's nice, yeah.
And it started off, and even I got into the pattern. I would find myself getting to like 6 p.m, winding down, and COVID was brilliant for me in essence of the business, because
Yeah.
it gave me more mental space to focus on, like, what impact do I want this to have, who do I want to help, like, just to channel energy into it a little bit more. So I was working, you know, I did a little bit of the old Warzone stuff, but to be honest with you, I was pretty locked in. So maybe it was a bit of a, I don't know, a stress response, but it get to 6 p.m. and I was like, I'll have a bit. I didn't have 2 or 3 or 4
Yeah.
a beer a night. That's strange for me. So I can see
How that people snowball.
100%. I can 100% see it. And then I think a consequence of COVID, and that journey went on for a long time for a lot of us. Like I said, I had prep, so I was using that kit. I was training in the garden. I was training in fucking piss it down with rain. I was recording form videos, and there's clips of me because we used to have wood decking.
I remember seeing these.
Oh,
as well.
mate, doing split squats and my foot slips and I'm like hitting the deck with 30 kg dumbbells in my hands. Like, just think, what the bloody hell was I doing? But I kind of had to do it, so I had that motivation, and I would have done it anyway.
Yeah.
Because I just can't not train, but had that motivation to do it. But I can so see how COVID was the catalyst for a complete downturn, and it takes, you
It's
know,
hard to come out of that, I think.
yeah, those habits calcify,
Yeah.
don't they? They really do.
And it's interesting that the people that you speak to, we refer to COVID like a war. Like, you know, like I imagine my grandma used to talk about World War Two. And she was born in 36, 37. And she remembers snippets of it. And it's like almost, I'm not saying it's remotely the same, but we refer to that like a definitive line, don't we? Like, this thing happened and this thing ended. And none of us can really remember when it ended, can
It's
we?
not similar, but it is similar in a way.
It's upheaval of people's lives, mate, and it's big. And I think for a lot of people, the catalyst for change, or in both positive and negative ways, happened during COVID. So, like you said, it's interesting that you talk to people and they say, actually, I was doing fine, COVID came, and guess what? I've been like picking myself out the hole ever since. And likewise, I'd hope to say, and I've had some interaction with people like this, where they're like, oh, COVID was my kind of awakening in terms of there's so much research out there for healthy individuals. You're more resilient, full stop. Immunity's better if you look after yourself. There's all these factors, and people saying, oh, the healthier you are, the less likely you are to get COVID, or less likely to become severely ill. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but I'd hazard a guess that most people.
As a general statement.
We know fitness
Probably
relates to so many things.
Yeah.
And that awakened a lot of people to go, actually, I need to change. And I can't stay the way I am. The fitter I become, the more resilient I am. And I think it's so interesting to see who fell into what category and why.
Yeah.
Because I bet there's executives on both sides. One fell in a bad spot. One person had that awakening.
Yeah. And I don't think it makes you
it's not better
any
or worse.
less of a
No, not
person
at all. Not at all.
to be the former. I just think it's a consequence of many things coming together. Most of it is a consequence of one small decision.
Yeah.
It's like that. You get to a point, you know, whether it's COVID or not, there's a kind of fork in the road, and you only have to take one step down the negative one, and the journey's kind of made for you, isn't it? In a way.
Road itself, hasn't
yeah.
it?
So
it.
yeah, people are definitely still pulling. Like, we've helped many people pull themselves out of the COVID situation, and we're now 3 years on.
Yeah.
It's definitely still going on. It's a strange one. The mental side of health and fitness is truly all there is to health and fitness.
Yeah.
Like, the physical application becomes so easy if your mind is locked into why you're doing it, the importance of doing it, and intention around doing it. It doesn't mean you have to operate like an athlete, but you'll just find a way, and it feels quite easy. If you're fighting it all the time, and you feel like when that when that motivation is not there, that dictates whether you action or not. You're just going to yo-yo cycle the whole time. What would you say? What's from your perspective? What's the number one thing someone can do to get out of the yo-yo cycle? What's going wrong for them if they go through phases of, you know, intensity, and they're all in, they drop a shit ton of weight or whatever, and then they fall out, and then they're back at square one. They do that for 5 to 10 years. What do you think is going wrong?
I think it's as you mentioned before, it's lack of why and lack of purpose. They kind of know why they want to do it, but it's not big enough. The draw's not enough to sustain that flame.
Yeah.
They want to get going. They want to do this, want to do that. Or, and we spoke about before with goal setting, they've set unrealistic goals for where they're at. If you're the best part of 28% body fat and you want to be 10%, well, guess what? You could probably do that in a year, but you are going to have to be so mentally strong to sustain that. And you've got to accept the fact that it's not going to happen overnight. And I think, go on TikTok now, we can Google certain people, physiques, and they've like 18, 19, 20-year-olds clearly on some anabolic sauce. But people see that and think, if you're doing that, I want to do that. So they come to us as coaches and say, right, I want this, I want that, I want to have this, I want to have that. And 9 times out of 10, it's aesthetic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to look a certain way. And the problem with that is that that's subjective for one. Your subjective opinion changes as you lose weight, as you start training, as you meet different people, fill in the blank. That's like something that, and it can change daily. How you feel about yourself, how you think you look and you perceive yourself can change daily, can change weekly, change monthly. So I think as mentioned before, I try to set objective goals for people. All right, okay, we want to lift this much weight or run at this sort of time, just because that's fixed. You know, you can't take that away. That is a real thing.
Yeah.
That's a hard, solid thing. How you perceive yourself can influence so greatly by the objective goals you set.
That's such an important point.
If that makes sense.
An important point.
I can, mate, if I'll give you an example, right? Talk about losing weight fast.
Yeah.
I might have told you a story before. Did some water rescue training at work. Great time swimming in the river. Swam past a nappy, right? Nappy full of shit. Thought,
in the river?
Yeah, mate, in the river. You see some grim things, right? I think, oh, that's not great. Anyway, next day at work, another water rescue job, spent like 6 hours in a dry suit, right? Quite cold. Get in the truck, I'm like dithering. I'm a bit cold here. Get back to the station, get in the shower. It's full bore, mate. Still shivering. I was like, oh fuck.
Something's going on.
Fast forward about
I've taken
minutes,
a mouthful of baby shit somewhere.
Projectile vomiting, both ends. Fast forward about 48 hours. I went from 100, I reckon I was 106 kilos. I was 99 kilos, mate. Hadn't weighed that little since I was probably 16. I was shredded, right? I was ridiculously lean. I was like, wow, great. I've lost 7 kilos in the best part of 48 hours. Not sustainable.
Yeah.
Literally, I remember taking a picture and sent it to Zoe, like, look how gaunt I am. But if you hadn't known that I'd swallowed a mouthful of baby shit, you would have thought,
shape of your life,
mate. Yeah, mate.
It's bizarre,
like, look great, mate. Look fantastic. I felt terrible.
Yeah.
I was like passing out taking the photo. The next day, fast forward 2-3 days, when I'm actually now hydrated, I've managed to keep more than a little bit of toast down. I'm back to like 104, 105 kilos. I'm back to how I looked. So if I was to take my subjective goal on 99 kilo Matt, and how I look 90% of the time, you think, fucking hell, I look crap now.
Yeah.
But that's not.
Yeah.
That's an elusive thing. It's not. It is real, but it's not real. That's not.
It's like, yeah, you're bang on, and I liken that to being on bodybuilding prep.
Yeah.
Like the leanest I've ever been, I've felt like fucking death. And I'm wearing clothes, people would be like, "Are you like something wrong with you?"
Mate, I remember passing you. We were walking with Zoe's parents. You were walking down. Just before is it Painswick Road?
Yeah, I used to do that.
I remember seeing it, and I was like, "Right, mate." You're like, "Yeah."
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
And you were like dragging your balls through broken glass in a bad way.
Yeah, so I was put on keto, which is not what to do for a bodybuilding prep. Put on keto from pretty much the first week of that prep. That prep was 27 weeks long.
You did keto the entire time?
I did keto until about 7 weeks out, and I was busting my balls. I was doing 15K or 12 to 15K steps, an hour on the Stairmaster a day, sometimes split between two sessions, and an hour and a half of resistance.
Mate,
plus like daily work, just like moving around and stuff. And I'd been on keto for that entire time, and I got 7 weeks out, and I could not lose weight. My HRV was like 18.
Yeah, you
for me, which was terrible.
Shutting down, mate.
So in the end, I was like, I'm just gonna have to fucking trust in my own instinct, put some carbs in, revitalized a little bit, shifted a ton of weight, obviously dropped some information, but technically by the time I got to that show, I was so mentally done, mate. It was such a shame because it was in COVID, so not everyone could come, and I was more like, I was just wanting to get it done for it to be over than enjoying the process, which I regret a little bit. But consequence of that journey. But I was the leanest I've ever looked, leanest I've been, best I've ever looked with my top off, and I just felt like fucking death. And that cannot be your only metric for success, particularly if you're, you know, whether it's for your job or whatever, you want to be focused on performance and energy levels and cognition. Not even forget how you look, but don't let that be the metric. Let that be a byproduct of the way you live your life.
Yeah. Good training, good diet, good consistency will allow you to look a certain way.
Yeah.
We said before, like, if you don't look like a sprinter, guess what? You've got to train like a sprinter.
Yeah,
Eat
exactly.
like a sprinter. If you want to look like a marathon runner, guess what? You know, their actions, they're purely objectively based, aren't they?
Yeah.
They are performing and training for one goal, and that's to be excellent at that thing.
Yeah.
And that's the mindset. I'm not saying you have to be an athlete. I'm just saying you have to think about how do they perceive training, diet, lifestyle, goals.
Yeah.
You have to try to think of that yourself. Like, if I want to look a certain way, guess what? I'm going to have to train and eat a certain way, because that's the only way it's going to happen.
Yeah. It's also, so I'm on a 72 hour water fast at the moment. I'm like, what am I now? 12 hours in or something. Now I guide our clients through water fasts, and almost every client, I know whether they tell me or not, they're solely focused on the first question is, how much weight will I lose?
Yeah.
And like, body fat, will I keep it off? It's like, that is not why you fast. No. You're not, particularly like an extended fast, you're not fasting for that reason. You'll get a net benefit. You might lose 2, 3, 4 kilos, depending on water retention, etc., all that stuff. It's not why you do it, but it's always their first thought. Yeah. And then once they've done one and they see the weight drop and they realise, oh, I've kept a little bit of it off, all the time they're like, when's the next fast, mate? I'm like, you've literally just come off a 72-hour fast. It's the first time you've done one. Give it 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and let's do one again and build them incrementally into your life. But they're like, well, that was fucking cool. I dropped this much weight and I kept 1.5 kilos off. Let me do that again. It's not why you do it. So it's reframing the mindset. If your why is you want to look great, change it, because looking great will come as a byproduct of the more exponential goal you set yourself. What's it?
I think the key thing as well is weighing yourself on a scale is good. As a coach, it's great because it tells us whether or not your the sort of thermodynamics of what you're eating and how you're training, if what we've programmed is having an effect. But I always say to clients, don't worry about that number so much. It's more for me than it is for you.
Don't be emotionally.
Exactly that. Because if we go to the moon, mate, guess what? We weigh less. The gravitational pull's less. So don't worry about that. And also, if you're happy with how you look, you move well, you perform well, fill in the blank, then you're at a good spot. Like we've already said, like we both kind of know at certain our athletic points are, what that weight is, and how we perform in terms of strength, how we move, how our joints feel, inflammation, that kind of stuff. The same thing happens for everybody else. I think don't worry so much about what's on the scale. Worry about how you're performing. If your performance is horrific and the scale's not great, well, then something's wrong, and then we have to address that. But just don't be obsessed, because, mate, you could go out and eat a bowl full of pasta and gain some, have the carbohydrates become glycogen in your body. Guess what? Glycogen stores more water, so now you've drawn more water in. You could have been depleted. Your glycogen stores the day before, now you've got more carbs, and guess what? You gain more weight. But you've not got fatter, you just weigh more. And I think that's the key difference we need to remember. It's composition of the percentage between like your bone mass, your fat mass, your muscle mass.
Exactly.
It becomes a part of weight, but it's you can't look at that scale.
Well, I think. And most people we coach, they travel, right? Now, when you travel, it's usually different food sources. There can be a response from the travel itself, particularly after being on an aeroplane. So your weight is always going to fluctuate. So you're right. Don't be emotionally tied to it, but it's such an important metric to track, because it gives us an idea of how your physiology responds to all the stimuli that we give it. But I think that's a good place to wrap up. We covered some diverse subjects there.
We've talked about worms.
We have. We're admitting that to the world. Mate, good to catch up with you. Thank you all for watching, and please do like, subscribe, comment any subjects, health and fitness related, or as you've seen today, anything else that you want us to cover, and hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you. We'll see you in the next one.